I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, Memorial Day is known as a big travel holiday, which kind of got us thinking about the new I-5 bridge project, also known as IBR. Planners expect to start construction in 2026 there across the Columbia River from Portland to Vancouver. That's also when they're going to start collecting tolls as well on the current bridges, to help pay for the new ones. The tolls and construction delays are probably your biggest upcoming headache. But do you ever think about the people who live in the path of that new construction? We did. Those people and their buildings. That's our big story tonight. The core of the project is a new pair of I-5 bridges over the Columbia River, but it also includes a light rail extension, upgrades to the surrounding 5 miles of I-5, and multiple smaller new bridges on the Oregon side of Hayden Island. Those additions are going to take up a lot of space, and some of that space is currently occupied by, things like restaurants and stores and offices and, people's homes. So, what happens when you have land that the government needs for a project, for a public works project? Well, if you're interested in selling, they'd be happy to buy it from you. And if you're not, they're going to buy it anyway. The beauty and beast of eminent domain. And while there's nothing official out yet, many of the people who are probably in the path of construction have started connecting the dots. Our transportation expert, digital reporter Anthony Masuk has our story.
It makes me mad. This was supposed to be our forever home.
Liz Schaub has lived in her house in Vancouver's Shumway neighborhood for 33 years. She says her first hint that there might be a problem came about a year ago when the IBR team asked to conduct survey work on the property.
We got a letter in the mail, and my husband was like, hon, you need to come in here. And so he read it, and I'm like, well, that's not good.
I'm the last one to know anything.
Sarah Whitney rents her house 1 block north of Liz, and she said she hasn't heard anything directly from IBR. But her landlords found out, and they mentioned it to her.
Well, as soon as I heard, and as soon as I kind of figured out what was going on, I freaked out. I was pretty scared. I was like, am I going to have to move in the next few months? Should I re-sign my lease? It was actually right before my lease got re-signed about 2 months ago. So I was wondering if I should resign. I was wondering if I should just move and get it out of the way, if it's going to get taken anyway. But I kind of calmed down since then, since I figured out it might be a little while.
Sarah and Liz live almost 2 miles north of the I-5 bridge, but their street is right next to the I-5 interchange with SR 500, where IBR wants to add a bypass off-ramp for drivers on I-5 South heading to 4th Plain Boulevard. But the interchange already runs right up against Liz and Sarah's street, so that new ramp to the west could end up going right through their living rooms. Maps made public by the project so far don't show which properties will need to be bought out to make room for the off-ramp, but there's another map that does. And it was quite the process to track that down. Let's explain. As part of the ongoing federal environmental review process, the IBR team is required to create a draft environmental impact statement, or EIS, a massive document that outlines every aspect of the project in fine detail, with lots of technical studies and data. That includes the final configuration of the new bridges. Right now, there are still a few different options under consideration, as well as which properties will potentially need to be acquired. The scheduled release date of that document has been delayed multiple times, most recently from spring 2024 to an unspecified date later in the year. So property owners who were previously expecting definitive answers right around now are still waiting.
There's just no answers.
That includes Brenda, who lives a block away from Liz.
They come in and they talk about, it's going to be fair, it's going to be equitable, the people that are going to build it are going to be, and I'm like, I don't care about that. I want to know what you're going to do with my house, if anything. And then we'll talk about fair and equitable for the price you give me.
But while the official draft EIS is still missing in action, a group of local activists and advocacy groups calling themselves the Just Crossing Alliance have been campaigning against the IBR project's current design. Leader Chris Smith says the group supports replacing the bridge itself, including with light rail, but that's where things should stop.
So the priority of the seismic replacement has been used as a catch-all to bring in this other freeway expansion for 5 miles. We'd love to see the scope narrowed and therefore the cost reduced so that those funds can go to other very important uses.
A few months ago, the group filed a public records request with Metro, asking for any pieces of the EIS that the bridge team had privately shared for the agency to review. Jackpot. They got dozens of documents, totaling more than 1,000 pages, and posted them on their website. To verify their authenticity, KGW submitted its own records request to Metro, and received the same set of documents. They represent a jumble of small pieces, and some were sent to Metro more than a year ago, so they could be outdated. IBR basically said as much when asked for comment, telling KGW, since the version made available through the request was released, the document has gone through and continues to go through several rounds of vetting and revisions. That being said, the documents do offer some significant new insights, including this color-coded map of potential property acquisitions. The map document states that the project may need to fully or partly acquire a total of 176 parcels, which would displace 43 residential units and 33 businesses. The biggest cluster of acquisitions is on Hayden Island, where the freeway will need to shift west to connect to the new bridges. 2 houseboat docks in the Portland harbor are also apparently in the way. Across the river in downtown Vancouver, the 6-story Hurley office building overlaps with the light rail line, and the adjacent office of Pacific Energy Concepts appears to be in the way of a local street extension.
All the drawings and diagrams, none of them I've seen, like, they all include mowing down my building, but also they won't let me know if that's the case or not.
CEO Keith Scott says he's trying to start making contingency plans for a move, and IBR has responded when he's reached out, but without a lot of definitive answers.
Without them being fully funded, they were like, hey, we can't, this is 2 steps ahead of where we're really at right now.
Up near SR 500, all of Sarah's block is coded for acquisition, along with most of Liz's block.
Oh, yeah.
It is incredibly frustrating.
Brenda's block is coded for partial acquisition, but she says IBR has done survey work on her property too, and she's gotten mixed signals about whether her house would be spared.
Well, then these guys said, well, we're going to do from 39th, which is up there, and all the way down. And so to do that, if we have to raise this sound wall here, then we're going to have to take the house because we're going to have to drive these big bolts underneath.
And it makes me angry.
For Liz and Brenda, the situation feels all too familiar. And if you've lived in the Portland, Vancouver area for a while, you can probably guess why. The IBR project is technically a revival of a previous major attempt at a new I-5 bridge, dubbed the Columbia River Crossing, or CRC. The CRC project famously imploded in 2013, before any shovels hit the dirt, but it got far enough into development for the planners to start pursuing property acquisitions, and Liz and Brenda both say their houses were in the crosshairs back then, too.
Last time, 20 years ago, the gal goes, we want to acquire your house. And I go, can you give me a 4-letter word for acquire? I don't get it. I don't understand what acquire is. I do understand. Anyway, and the gal goes, well, we just want to acquire your house. And I said, no, you want to take my house. Ain't gonna happen, honey.
The CRC would have impacted much of the same slice of Hayden Island. The current property acquisitions document states that IBR's plan will displace fewer island businesses, though it adds that's in part because several of those businesses have closed down anyway in the past decade. But not every building on the IBR list was around in the CRC days, especially in Vancouver's rapidly growing downtown and waterfront districts. The Hurley building is practically brand new, built on a previously vacant lot. It opened in 2020. The Pacific Energy Concepts headquarters next door opened in 2017 after renovating a former car repair shop. Scott says he was betting on upcoming redevelopment projects to revitalize the area, and the bet paid off. But that means finding a new place today would be that much harder.
It will be very, very challenging and also very, very expensive to recreate what we have here. Some of my homework I've been doing and just kind of research, trying to figure out alternatives. All the alternatives are going to be at a significant financial investment for us. And so I don't know how they plan on, taking care of us and figuring that out, but I've been just doing a lot of research on the eminent domain process and learning what to expect.
But regardless of whether this is their first or second rodeo, the common feeling among all the property owners who spoke to KGW was a sense of frustration at not being able to know for certain what's going to happen or when.
I haven't cleaned because if they're going to take my house and they're just going to demolish it, why? I'm not going to do it.
We were in limbo on the last one, and we're in limbo on this one. And so that's frustrating and of not knowing.
In Vancouver, Anthony Masuk, KGW News.
Thanks, Anthony. Great report there. We contacted the IBR to ask about property acquisitions, buying or taking those properties. They sent us a statement. It says in part, the IBR program will do everything feasible to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts associated with its investments. No final decision has been made about what will be built, and several steps remain before discussions around specific property impacts begin. Any affected property owners will be contacted well before construction if their property may be impacted. They went on to say that the draft environmental impact statement will list potential property impacts when it comes out later this year, but formal discussions about buying property will not happen until the final version of that document, which comes out and the federal government gives a project a green light to start construction. So that whole thing, well, that's not going to happen until next year. So you folks who are waiting for a clear yes or no, sorry, you're going to have to keep waiting. In the meantime, what's going through your mind about all this? Anytime we talk about eminent domain, it certainly fires up a whole bunch of you. Share your thoughts, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Up next now on The Story, Portland police have increased patrols on the weekends, specifically targeting drug dealers. There's certainly no shortage of drugs changing hands in the central city. So how are things going? Blair Best brings us along when The Story returns.
Yeah, from when I was 8 years old until now, and yeah, I can't imagine it getting any better, but I'm sure you folks will find a way to make it better.
Well, the great Bill Walton sure found a way to make things better for Portland fans, leading the Blazers to that unforgettable title back in 1977. Today, the league announced that Walton died at the age of 71 after a long battle with cancer. His storied basketball career began at UCLA, where he was named College Player of the Year 3 times, leading the Bruins to 2 NCAA titles. The Blazers then picked him first in the 1974 draft, and Walton embraced the community and everything the Pacific Northwest had to offer. He would go on to win another NBA title with the Boston Celtics in 1986. Later in life, he became a broadcaster, and with his attire, he put the color in color commentary. Walton worked both NBA and college games, winning an Emmy for his work. So many memorable moments in a life well lived. And we'd love to hear your Bill Walton stories. Maybe you were there when the Blazers won it all in '77, or something he said on TV has stuck with you through the years. Share it with us, will you? Send us an email. The address again, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now to Portland's drug crisis and the fight against fentanyl. A few weeks ago, Portland police increased their patrols downtown, targeting drug dealers on the weekends. So we started wondering, how's that going? Blair Best spent the day there to find out.
There's a side to street life Leo knows all too well.
The first time I got arrested here, I lost everything that I could have used to get somewhere, like my ID, birth certificate.
He's since learned to keep his eye out for police.
Like, I don't get arrested anymore, but I used to get arrested like every day.
3 weeks ago, the Portland Police Bike Squad, widely known for their response to the city's fentanyl crisis, added more officers and upped their patrols to cover weekends.
It keeps that pressure on folks that are engaged in drug dealing.
They might think they are, but they're really not, because every time they arrest one, there's like 10 more to replace that one person. So.
Hands up right now. Hands up. Don't move. Hands up. Down on your knees right now.
Police video from this past weekend shows officers and state troopers arresting several drug dealers at gunpoint.
Open the door now!
From what I'm hearing, the police is being really persistent on people that's usually at the parks.
We're still focused on the hot spots that we hear from the community, you know, the Safeway, 10th, 11th, 12th Avenue and Old Town, the park blocks.
Well, that's good. I mean, in general.
Mark Lyon and his wife live in one of those hot spots, yet haven't seen much of a change.
Not in the area where we live, specifically, in the park blocks.
We've kind of spread out. We're essentially all over downtown now, and we hope to continue these efforts as the summer keeps going.
Those addicted on the streets say that won't stop them.
There's always going to be drugs, so people will always find them.
So as you just saw, Portland Police Bike Squad, they're mainly targeting and arresting drug dealers, but soon changes will be coming to how they respond to people using and possessing hard drugs, because come September, that will be a crime again in Oregon, and in some cases, people will have the option of going to treatment or other services instead of jail. Today, Portland Police says they're still figuring out how that will all work. Blair Best, KGW News.
On the last Monday in May, a wreath is placed on the tomb of the unknown soldier. American flags are placed on the grave sites of fallen soldiers at Arlington National Cemetery, symbols of Memorial Day, a time to honor our fallen service members. But is it true that Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day? Using these sources, let me walk you through the history of the holiday and why its name changed. When the first national celebration of the modern Memorial Day holiday took place at Arlington National Cemetery on May 30th, 1868, the holiday was called Decoration Day. According to the Library of Congress, John A. Logan, commander-in-chief of an organization of Union Army veterans, established May 30th as Decoration Day, a time for the nation to decorate the graves of fallen Civil War soldiers with flowers. But tributes to soldiers lost in the Civil War occurred throughout the country before the 1868 observance. The U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs says approximately 25 places, many in the South, have been linked to the holiday's origins. After World War I, the holiday was expanded to honor all fallen soldiers. In 1938, Congress recognized Decoration Day as a federal holiday. According to the Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Memorial Day became a more popular name for the holiday after World War II. And in 1967, the federal government officially adopted the new name. Then, in 1971, a law was passed that changed the holiday from May 30th to the last Monday in May. So there you have it. Memorial Day was originally called Decoration Day, and it wasn't always celebrated on the last Monday in May. With your Fast Fact, I'm Adiante Till.
And now you know. On this Memorial Day, we're also hearing from a local World War II veteran who recently celebrated his 100th birthday. He tells us he was, quote, one of the lucky ones who made it after joining the effort as a teenager. Ashley Grams has his story.
These pages tell the story of a sailor.
Yeah, I remember.
Who fought for American freedom in the South Pacific during World War II.
That's me, and that's A.B. Hoffman. I was born in 24. I must have been about 20. Here in my ship.
You heard that right. Andrew Naylor was born in 1924. This May, he celebrated his 100th birthday.
I've been very blessed. I've been very blessed.
Was suddenly and deliberately attacked.
Naylor was only 17 years old when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor.
They sunk our battleships, gunned down all our planes, killed a bunch of our people, and we were ready to go over there and get even.
He enlisted in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and so did his father.
My son's in, and I want to back him up, and he stayed in the Army.
At 42 years old, his dad joined the Army. Young Naylor was first sent to the USS Kitty Hawk, a cargo ship, before transferring to a destroyer less than a year later.
We had five 38-inch guns.
He spent the next 3 years on this ship, the USS Heerman. Naylor was a machinist mate first class.
I survived it. A lot of my shipmates didn't.
Including his best friend. Naylor says a piece of shrapnel killed him.
It went right clear through him, killed him right on the spot. And then there were 7 other guys who were killed at the same way on my ship.
He was almost at every major conflict they had in the South Pacific.
Mark began researching his father's naval career in the Battle of Leyte Gulf about a decade ago, learning just how hard he fought.
Can you imagine at the age of 17 being on a warship, fighting for your life and for your country, and doing it with purpose?
For nearly 4 years, Naylor was in the heat of battle, fighting for the country he loved and the sailors by his side.
I was one of the lucky ones that made it. I don't think I'm a good enough guy to really be worthy of it, but I'm thankful.
What an incredible man. Well, Andrew is enjoying his 100th year of life out in Boring, Oregon. His children are continuing to document his life, working to pass down his legacy to the next generation. For KGW News, I'm Ashley Grams.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks for his service and for sharing that story. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. But remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. By the way, before we go tonight, I know many of you are enjoying an extra day off, and good for you. But there are others who are not celebrating today. Instead, they're grieving and remembering loved ones who died protecting our freedom. So, as we say goodbye on this Memorial Day, we leave you with a moving performance of taps at the tomb of the unknown soldier, played by members of the U.S. Army Band.